Why the a-hole for not attending my sister's life events after she made it clear I wasn't a priority to her? I, 28 male, have a younger sister, Sarah, 24 female. She has always been a little self-centered, and my parents did spoil her quite a bit, at least in my opinion. If there was an event or something going on that wasn't directly related to her, she didn't want to do it. She would either complain the entire time or make a scene about not wanting to be there. Eventually, my parents just gave in and stopped fighting her over it because it was easier. When I got married 5 years ago, Sarah ended up not coming to the wedding because she decided the last minute that she was too stressed from her freshman year at college and needed time with her friends to unwind and decompress. My wedding was in July, and she had been home from college for almost 2 months at that point. She didn't even tell me she wasn't coming herself. I had to hear that from my parents. She didn't come to a baby shower for my firstborn a year later either because it would have been too far to travel for just a weekend. It was a 90-minute drive from her college, and we had told her that she could spend the night at our place. I saw on her Instagram the next week that she was out clubbing with friends all weekend. I called her and told her how disappointed I was that she continually refused to come to major life events that are important to me. And she actually told me, "It's not that big of a deal. You'll probably have more kids, right?" It was at that point that I pretty much decided that I wasn't going to put any effort into maintaining a relationship with Sarah. And since then, I have done barely the bare minimum. Sure, I see her at Christmas, maybe Thanksgiving, but I don't really talk to her. Then about 6 months ago, Sarah got knocked up by a one-night stand. She's keeping the baby even though the father has made it clear he wants nothing to do with her or his child. That's her choice, and I'm not going to judge her for it. But when she sent me and my wife an invite to her baby shower, I actually laughed. My wife thinks we should go because Sarah is going to have it very hard as a single mother. I don't doubt that one bit. I will never be able to relate to what Sarah's life will be like, but that's not my problem. I told my wife I wouldn't stop her from going, but I wouldn't be attending. As it turns out, the shower conflicts with a work event for my wife, so she can't go either. So I declined the invitation. Sarah called me a couple days later asking why we declined the invite. So I told her that my wife has a work event and I'm going to be watching our kids. She said I could bring the kids, but I told her I wouldn't be doing that. She asked why, and I asked if she really wanted to know. When she said she did, I told her that she made it a point to avoid every major life event I had. So how could she expect me to want to go to hers? She called me an a-hole and hung up. My parents said I was too harsh and that Sarah needs our support more than ever, but I feel like that bridge has already been burnt. Now for the top comments. Not an a-hole. Surprised you didn't just go with, "It's not that big of a deal. You'll probably have more kids, right?" Besides, it's not like your wife can't send her a gift separately if she's feeling generous. Definitely a missed opportunity there. Man, that really would have pissed her off. I would actually just let your parents know that you were just doing what they taught you was the acceptable treatment of a sibling. I would not put it past Sarah to just want a gift from me or help when she has the baby. It does not sound like she is even sorry for her actions. Not an a-hole. It astounds me the number of people who burn bridges then are surprised when the people on the other side won't go out of their way to cross the river. I wonder how interesting being a mother is going to be for her when she stops being the center of attention the moment the baby is outside of her. No one will care she exists, other than as the adult who holds the keys to access to the baby. Enjoy that. Exactly. You burn a bridge? You're going to have to build a new one before you can expect people to cross and come to you. Sarah sounds like she did absolutely nothing to repair the relationship she trashed. So restoring the relationship is her responsibility. You definitely don't do that by suddenly, out of the blue, inviting people to an event where they're expected to give you a gift. Because then you have the added crappiness of coming across as inviting them only for the gift. Opie is not an a-hole. Lol, not an a-hole. Actions have consequences. You reap what you sow, etc. It's life lesson time for sis. I mean, she missed your wedding? That's not a thing for people who want to have relationships with their family. Tell your parents they can give her a gift with your name on it if it means that much to them. Not an a-hole. Your parents taking her side over this shows why Sarah turned out the way she did. Sounds like she's been catered to a lot and enabled. She hasn't been a true sister to you, and you have tried to express your disappointment with her while she has made excuses for her not being present in your life. I say keep it to main holidays, but otherwise don't go out of your way. I can see if she apologized for being wrong so many times, but she doesn't seem genuine. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for blocking my brother-in-law and his wife so they didn't have to see our baby pictures? My 32 male, wife 33 female, and I have 3 kids, 5 female, 2 male, and my wife just gave birth to a little boy. My wife loves sharing things on social media, but has never really posted pictures of our kids up until now because she's recently made it so that her page can only be viewed by her close family, which includes her brother, 38 male, and his wife, 30s female. Both of them don't like children and have decided to not have any. Okay, it's their life. Good for them. A few days ago, my wife started posting about 2 pictures of our son a day with cute little captions. Yesterday, I received a text from my brother-in-law asking if I could tell my wife to stop posting pictures of the baby. I asked why, and he told me that he and his wife didn't want to see kids on his social media feed and asked that I respected his decision. I told him that I wasn't going to be his messenger and to talk to my wife himself, but he replied that he didn't want to upset her and to please just talk to her because the baby pictures were driving him insane. I told him that I thought that was rather dramatic, and that's when he said that he was already forced to deal with our kids during family reunions, which haven't happened since like 2019, and that he shouldn't expect to have to deal with them in his off time. I didn't reply to that message, and instead talked to my wife about it. She's a bit quicker to anger than I am, and she sent a message that essentially said that if he couldn't deal with 2 pictures a day, then he didn't need to see anything going on in our lives. We talked about it a little more and came to an agreement to block both of them from that social media. My brother-in-law has now contacted me through Messenger, absolutely upset that he and his wife have been blocked, saying that we jumped the gun and we're just being petty about the situation. Were we? My wife is kind of firm on the fact that what we did was the right thing, but I'm a little hesitant to agree. Not a a-hole. Your brother-in-law doesn't get to dictate what your wife posts on her social media. He could have fixed this in a far less hurtful way by simply filtering content in his own feed. Your wife just gave him what he asked for. Since he's now blocked, he doesn't have to see baby pictures in his feed, and your wife can continue to post the content she wants. Problem solved. Yep, brother-in-law can unfollow his sister if he's that upset about it. Opie's wife needs to be the one to set boundaries with her family, and brother-in-law tried to force Opie to be the middleman. At this point, it's best to keep their heads down and let it blow over. Not a-hole. Not a-hole. Facebook does allow you to unfollow someone's posts without blocking/unfriending them. If they didn't want to see the baby, they could have done this instead of being jerks about it to the parents. So true. However, I suspect being a-holes to the parents might have been the point here. Brother-in-law sounds like a controlling jerk. Not the a-hole. Your brother-in-law is the a-hole. Your social media is for you to share what you want, and nobody can control that except for you. If he does not want to see baby pictures, then he could simply unfollow the account. Blocking was the right thing to do. Your kids are an important part of your life, and if he wants to be in your life, then that is something he has to deal with. Not the a-hole. Your brother-in-law could have muted your wife's page so that he doesn't see her posts while not being an a-hole about seeing photos of his nephew and making a big deal about it. He didn't have to say anything, and now he gets nothing and is mad about it? You guys are not a a-hole. Your brother-in-law, on the other hand. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for suggesting that my son-in-law and daughter hire a nanny? My daughter, 27 female, and son-in-law, 30 male, currently have 2 kids, 4 and 6. They both have very intensive careers and mentioned that they were struggling with work-life balance. They were hoping for my wife and I to pick up the kids from school, help drive them to after-school activities, and basically look over them from 2:30 to 5:30 p.m. time. To give some context, I used to do this for my 3 kids because I had a more flexible schedule, academia, between my wife and I. However, I also used to work every night from 10 p.m. to 3 a.m. to make up for that time. My wife and I are not retired. I love my grandkids, but I still have many responsibilities. I'm also far too old to consider returning to my schedule from before my kids went to college. I suggested that they hire a nanny because, as I reflect, that's what I would do if I were to go back in time. This upset my daughter, which I realized I was a little tactless in that regard. However, I also feel like she is old enough to understand that my schedule when they were growing up was really terrible and not something I would want her to replicate. My son-in-law then got really self-righteous about us not prioritizing the grandkids and had the audacity to even mention the word retirement. This lack of responsibility for their own kids and the condescending assumption that their time is more valuable than ours really angered me, and we left. Now, I'm wondering if I was out of line with the suggestion, but I feel like that is the solution if they aren't willing to make other trade-offs with their careers or their personal time. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. They're acting entitled to your time in a way that you can't provide it anymore, and trying to manipulate you emotionally to get what they want. Exactly. My wife and I live within striking distance of our parents, but only use them as babysitters very sparingly. We have a full-time nanny who travels with us as necessary, and we're even considering a live-in au pair. It's surprisingly inexpensive and a great solution. Furthermore, the plans to hire a nanny and what kind of grandparent involvement there would be all took place before our child was conceived. It sounds like Opie's daughter just assumed they were entitled to their parents' time without discussing any of these plans in advance. Not they hole. Grandparents are not free babysitters unless they offered one to be. You have a life outside your kids and their children. You catered your world around them when they were young as you should have. Now that they have learned to cope, it is your time to do as you want. Grandparents are not free babysitters unless they offered one to be. I have a friend whose mother cares for her baby 2 days a week so she can go back to work. They could not afford nursery 4 days a week. To do this, her mom had to stop caring for her older sister's kids, and older sister went mental. In the end, the mom was like, I did free childcare for you for 7 years, since kid A was 6 months until kid C was 2. It hurts her now. It was just so entitled to assume her parents would be there forever to take up the slack. Not the a-hole. Your daughter has some serious entitlement going on to think you do for her children what you did for her and her siblings. Your son-in-law needs to take his mouth and shut it. He doesn't get to tell you anything. You didn't raise him, nor did you marry him. Tell them to be parents like you were, and either do it the hard way or get a nanny. The nerve of these grown people acting like you are obligated to provide free. And this is what they want: childcare. If the son-in-law is so interested in retirement, he should consider it himself. He should sacrifice his career for his children, not asking a grandparent to sacrifice. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for saying no when my husband's sister asked me to cook after she ran out of money? About 6 weeks ago, my husband's sister and her 3 kids came to stay with my husband and me. His sister was involved in an accident, and upon the release from the hospital needed some help with some stuff, and so we welcomed her and the kids into our home with our kids. She was in a wheelchair for the first few weeks until her left arm was okay again, but her leg and foot have been taking some time. Even during that time, it was frustrating. I would consult with her on meals to prepare, but I have 2 kids with allergies, so that needs to be taken into account, and I wasn't going to start cooking multiple meals. We would agree on something after a lot of back and forth, and then she and the kids would complain that it wasn't what they wanted. And then after the first few days, she started ordering takeout after I had already started cooking/had cooked the food, instead of just saying she didn't want what I was making, and so then we had food going to waste. My husband confronted her on it, and she said she wouldn't do it again and apologized. Then last week, it all came to a head. I had decided to cook her youngest favorite meal for their birthday, which she knew about and had said thank you for. And then sprung takeout on us and said that she hadn't wanted her kid to have a sucky dinner for their birthday. Cue me saying that was enough, and she would worry about feeding her kids while I would worry about mine. Done. No big issue. I refused to be disrespected like that. Then yesterday, she ran out of money, and she asked if I would cook for them all again, and I told her no. I told her she disrespected me enough and wasted enough of my time and our money, and she could figure something out since I would hate for her to eat turd. She raged at me, told me I was taking our issues out on the kids, and how she's meant to be resting more than she was, so how dare I put her health at risk over petty fighting. Or family blah blah. I told her she should have thought all of this before deciding she could keep ordering stuff behind my back, and then insulting my cooking. And she never had this issue before they moved in. She ended up calling her parents, and they transferred money to her. But apparently, they think I should have been a more gracious host too. And my husband's sister is basically saying I acted like an a-hole. I am still so shocked at the nerve, but questioning if she's right. Am I the a-hole? A grown woman going to her parents to complain. She's the a-hole. She's disrespectful and insulted your cooking more than once. Not the a-hole. She wants to run to mommy to complain. Cool. She can go stay there. Am I the only one who has parents who would tell me this situation is my own fault if I went running to them after this? I can tell you from experience that some parents enable one and not the other. Husband and I meal plan / prep. We have done this for ages. We spent an entire Saturday prepping and freezing a month's worth of meals that we freeze. Really good, high-quality meats, spices, sides for about $165. I can make us a month's worth of really good dinners and leftovers. We have it down to a science. A couple of years ago, my mother, who totally enables my older sister, called me and said my sister and her family had no food. They were starving. Her and her husband were both working full-time. Could we help them? I gave my sister almost a month's worth of fully prepared meals. All she had to do was thaw and throw in a crock-pot or in the oven. 2 weeks later, my mother called me and said, "Your sister has thrown out most of the food you gave them. They don't like cooking, and you misunderstood me. They wanted money to go out to eat, not food given to them. Can you just give them like $400 to $600 so they can go out to eat? They like Red Lobster, not meals they have to make themselves." My mother and sister had no idea why I was so angry and wouldn't further give her $400 to $600 so they could eat out every night. I told my mother that was our entire month's worth of food. Did she throw it all away? They thought I was being ridiculous because I was so upset.